Welcome back to the business end. I'm going to start with a confession. The man sitting across from us today, I signed him back for Dungannon when I'd retired playing for rugby. He was 18, hadn't made the Irish schools at the time, and I sat across from him and his mum in my office and tried to convince him that joining us at Dungannon was the right call. His mum had some very hard questions, and the drive from Bangor to Dungannon wasn't exactly selling itself. Somehow it worked. So, sarcastically, everything that follows is either credit to me or a very long argument for letting mothers make all the decisions. Craig Gilroy grew up in Bangor, County Down, played football, Gaelic, came to rugby almost by accident, went to Methodist College Belfast, won 2 Ulster Schools Cups without ever getting near the representative system, joined Ulster's Academy in 2010 and scored 8 tries in his first season, made the Heineken Cup final in his second, became the youngest player in Ulster's history to reach 100 and then 150 caps, finished his career only second to Andy Trimble on the province's all-time try-scoring list, 69 tries in 211 appearances. For Ireland, 10 caps between 2012 and 2017, 5 tries. A debut against Argentina, then 1 cap in 3.5 years, while being named to 2 consecutive Pro 12 Dream Teams and winning Ulster's Player of the Year. Then a hat-trick on his final appearance against Italy in Rome. The door hasn't opened since. In between, a back injury left him unable to put his socks on, and in 2023, after 13 seasons at the only professional club he'd ever known, he chose to retire. Craig, you're very welcome. It's great to see you again. Thanks for putting up for the Dungannon commute, and welcome to the business end.
Thanks, Fitzy.
Welcome,
Thanks a lot,
Craig.
Fitzy. Thanks,
Welcome.
Liam. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before Fitzy dives into the first question, he said that you could turn on like a sixpence in a phone box, and saying you're a very quick mover. You must have been really quick to get round Fitzy in a phone box.
If I saw anyone Fitzy's size, I would be running the other direction. Like in the Waterboy, I'd be turning and going.
No, very good. So let's crack on and get into it. So, Craig, you won 2 Ulster Schools Cups at Methody. You weren't picked for the Irish schools. The representative system was looking past you. So we sat down with you and your mum, hoping to bring you to Dungannon, and we made the case and were successful. You made the drive down very diligently for training and matches, and then you got an opportunity with the Ulster Academy, scoring 8 tries in your first season. What does that tell you about talent identification systems and how they actually work? And what do you think was missing in the system and what could be done to close it?
I suppose you said there that I didn't play Irish representative. Mm-hmm. I didn't even play Ulster representative when I was in school. I wasn't the star player in school by any means. There was guys that went on to play rugby professionally, provincially and internationally ahead of me, and those were the guys playing the Ulster schools and the Irish schools. And I wasn't selected when I was in school. I couldn't really have argued with anyone. I've always been quite a good athlete, but I wasn't by any means a standout rugby player. And it wasn't until I left school and joined up with yourself at Bangor, and then followed you to Dungannon as well. And sorry, Liam, for blowing smoke up his ass, but that wasn't until then that I actually learned how to play rugby. The little details, the 1%ers, how to read the game. I didn't really learn loads of that in school. I just got by being quite quick, agile, quite athletic. So yeah, it wasn't until I sort of had left school and really started to develop and gaining that sort of rugby IQ, as people talk about, how you convinced me to drive what it would have been Tuesday, Thursday and a Saturday, so 6 hours a week from Bangor to Dungannon. I have no idea how you did that, but it's one of the best decisions I ever made. I'll always be grateful to you for putting that in front of me. It's funny, for such a, alien's probably the wrong word, but as an 18-year-old from Bangor, I don't think I'd ever even been to Dungannon. To then be sort of basing the most of my life there for a year or a year and a half, was actually really enjoyable. I was waking up on Tuesday mornings, Thursday mornings, like so excited about going to training, which when I look back, you have to have that sort of passion and drive and want and ambition to be good or great at anything. It didn't matter if Dungannon was an hour away. It could have been 3 hours away. But I loved playing senior rugby and I was getting better and different opposition every week all over Ireland. And I was starting to play with and against people who were in that provincial setup, fully professional players. And I started to get a gauge of where I was at. And, maybe I'm as good or better than that person. So it was Dungannon really that was a huge springboard for me onto the rest of my career.
I'm going to say there's 3 points there that come out in spade. They go back to the original chunk of the question in terms of, and that's great honesty from you at your time. And I think for context for the viewers, I mean, Methodist is a great rugby program, has been. It's always up there as a contender for the Ulster Schools Cup. It's a lot of good players, as you mentioned there, came through it with you, before you, and after you. So there's an interesting point there about keeping the pathway open for potentially late developers, whether it's late physically, technically, tactically, and then sort of moving on. I think you make a really, really valuable point. And while you're not necessarily at that stage of your career moving to a different country, there is it is different from Bangor. Dungannon is a wonderful, wonderful place with great people and a great atmosphere. And I know for myself, and I think I speak for Liam here, because we started our careers at London Irish, and we commuted in from outside of London to do that. And mixing with different people, coming from into a different environment, helps you grow and develop as a person, which I believe is fundamental for growing as a player. And I did have a third point, but I've had too many bangs on the head and I can't remember it, so we'll leave it there.
But Fitzy, just to sort of answer your question about this sort of system, I don't feel like I missed the boat, because I didn't think at that stage I was good enough, and I wouldn't have had an argument. I wasn't disappointed. I didn't expect to. But it wasn't until afterwards, playing senior rugby, and yes, it was a road less travelled then in 2010. I think it's much more possible now. The positives for me were yourself banging on the door at Ulster, obviously having been a player there for so long, and the connections you had, Kieran Campbell as well, and ultimately probably David Humphreys coming to watch some of our matches at Stevenson Park, right, in Dungannon, who's I'm not saying he was coming to watch me play, but he was coming to watch Dungannon play, and I was playing, and I remember seeing him there and thinking, I want to have a stormer here, because he was the DOR, and road less travelled, but I got my foot in the door. I got a few A appearances, and carried on from there.
So, before I ask you the next question, Craig, I was going to ask you, Fitzy, because this is important in the story here. What did you see in Craig at a young age, perhaps that the Irish schoolboy selectors didn't see?
Well, I mean, and again, it's great humility from Craig saying what you're saying there, and you didn't expect it to go on, but right from watching you at a Bangor training session and then going, I think we went to a sevens tournament. I'm spacing which one, but anyway, you're. There we go. And so you're competing against players that were maybe at that point higher up on the representative pathway, and other good athletes. And I think three things came out for me: your competitive spirit, your positive attitude, but your physical characteristics. I mean, as Liam joked about at the start of the pod, you could beat someone on a dime in a phone box. You had great footwork and really, I thought, and still do, explosive acceleration, that was, that was right up there at that top level. Yeah. So, you put those three things together, that positive attitude, that willingness to learn and develop, and those physical characteristics and footwork, that for me was the combination of three things that have served you very well in a very long and storied career.
And
Thank you.
Craig, do you think as well that not being selected for Irish schools, do you think that gave you a bit more hunger and edge than the players that were?
Honestly, Liam, no, because I'm going back to the player I was at that stage as a teenager, as a 17, 18-year-old. I knew the guys around me were better than me, were I suppose more experienced, had played rugby for longer than I had. I was playing Gaelic, I was playing football, I was playing rugby. I didn't really have a sole focus on one sport. It was actually probably soccer, football. That was my main sport. So at that stage, not really. Would I have liked to have been selected for Ulster schools or Ireland schools? Absolutely. I would have bit your hand off, but I was smart enough to see who was around me, who was getting selected, and I had no arguments there. I played with I played with and against some great schoolboys who went on to Ulster, Ireland, and be British and Irish Lions. Now, if you fast forward a couple of years into my pro career, that feeling never stopped. It was a complete change. I absolutely felt I was good enough to be playing for Ulster, to be playing for Ireland, to maybe put my hand up for a Lions tour. That never stopped, and that was probably, you talk about that frustration at school. No, but that was frustrating in my pro career. It seemed no matter how many records I broke or tries I scored, I just couldn't solidify my place in the Ireland team. And well, to this day, I don't really know why. And, we've just watched the Six Nations there, where three of the standout players have been Ulster players: Rob Balakoon, Nick Timoney, Stuart McCluskey, and everyone's raving about them. I would argue they've been doing this for 8 years. I don't know exactly what it is. I always felt personally I was selected, and I was in lots of camps, lots and lots of camps, but I only have 10 caps, and I felt like if I got injured, or if I wasn't in on form, it was the coach was maybe like, "Phew, I don't have to have him down." I don't know what it is. I feel like I should be sitting here with 50 caps and not 10, but under Andy Farrell, that seems to be changing, which is great. And Andy Farrell was the D coach when I was with Ireland. I think he's a top coach, an even better bloke. And I think he doesn't care what province you're from. If you're good enough, he'll give you an opportunity.
So when did the kind of penny drop and you thought, yeah, I'm good enough to play for Ireland? And was it your ambition when you were 17, 18, joining Dungannon? Was it actually your goal to play for Ireland at that particular moment? Or was it just to get better as a player?
I think when I played at Bangor after school, that was my first sort of taste of senior rugby. You're not playing against other schoolboys anymore. You're playing against fully grown men in their 20s and 30s. And, Bangor was a great team at that time. I finished with them and we won the league. I can't remember exactly what league it was, but, Fitzy was the head coach. We won the league. Um, I don't think it was AIL. It wasn't the top league, right? We'll put it at that. But we still won it, and that was my first experience of like senior rugby. That made me want to, I suppose, experience it more. and at a higher level, you start to get a little bit like inquisitive about yourself. Well, try this. Maybe let's try another league. Maybe let's go a league above. But which Ulster club is in the top league in Ulster that's going to be playing against those other clubs throughout Ireland? Who's the top team in AIL? And the structure has since changed umpteen times, but at that time, Dungannon was one of the Ulster clubs that was in the highest league throughout Ireland. So that was appealing to me to go down there and test myself and see how good. See, could I still be as good as I was for Bangor in a much higher league? And I did need some persuasion from Fitzy. I did need a little bit of reassurance, thinking to myself, I'll go down. It's going to be way, way harder. But to be honest with you, I went down to Dungannon and I just kept doing what I was doing at Bangor, and I was beating defenders and scoring tries just as well, if not more, because I was getting better. I was learning and learning and learning off coaches, off players who were coming down from Ulster. If guys aren't playing week in week out for Ulster, they will usually get released to the clubs. So you're now in an environment with even better players, even more structured plays, a more not more serious team, but probably more professional. As you go up and up and up, little things start getting added to it. Whether that's like more sort of regimented S&C program, or maybe there's a nutritionist comes in part time. Even like bus journeys or hotels being booked for away games. Little things like that. It gets a bit more serious and more professional. Um, I've gone off on a wee bit of a tangent there, but I definitely needed some reassurance that was going to be the right move, that I was going to be good enough. And I said to you 2 weeks ago when I saw you in Belfast, Fitzy could sell ice to the Eskimos.
I don't know about that, but I'll take the compliment. So you were 21 in your second season, and also in the Heineken Cup final at Twickenham against Leinster. Take me back to that week before that game. Not the tactics, not the team talks. What was the atmosphere really like within the group? What were you picking up? And looking back now, where were the signals in that build-up that told you something wasn't quite right before the game even started?
That The build-up was unbelievable. We were playing in Twickenham. It was a Heineken Cup final. How many people get to experience that? Um, we were playing against Leinster, which obviously is a big rivalry for Ulster. Provincially, all the provinces would rival each other. Of course, battling against people who you're trying to compete with for the international stage. The build-up was amazing. I think it was a sellout game, or 80 or 90,000 people in Twickenham. We had beaten Munster away in the quarter final. Star-studded Munster team with Ronan O'Gara and Paul O'Connell and Donnacha O'Callaghan, Simon Zebo, Keith Earls. This star-studded Munster team in Thomond Park, which was, I think it was maybe this coming weekend, about 2012, so 14 years ago. And we were completely, like, everyone wrote us off, but we went down there and we won, and it was one of the most enjoyable, best rugby memories of my career, of my life, probably. Following that, we had Edinburgh in the semi-final at the Aviva Stadium, so it was home ground for us, which was, we were kind of looking at it, no disrespect to Edinburgh, we were looking at it like this was going to be a win. We were the favourites. Not an easy win, not a comfortable win, and it proved to be a little bit harder than it was, but we still got the job done. And then we were to play Leinster in the final, and yeah, the build up was just amazing. We went over to an estate in London for a few days to train, a bit of team bonding prior to it. Obviously we did all our team stuff and training, and gameplay and whatnot, and then we headed for the airport a few days before. I think you have to be in, not at the stadium, but in the vicinity 48 hours before for Heineken Cup games, in case anything goes wrong, whether the flight's delayed or whatnot. And it was just really, really cool. As a 21-year-old, it was you kind of don't realize how, I didn't realize how sort of big it was at that age. It's not until I look back, and just a massive, massive build up. And unfortunately, the match wasn't the same buzz as the lead up to it was. Leinster ran away with it. They beat us quite comfortably. I think it was maybe in the 40s to 17, maybe. So they won very comfortably, and added another star to their for their European Cups. Again, that Leinster team was you know Johnny Sexton and Jamie Heaslip and Sean O'Brien, Brian O'Driscoll, Rob Carney, Luke Fitzgerald. So a whole host of internationals, if not British and Irish Lions. Unbelievable experience. Obviously, it would be nice to be a Heineken Cup winner.
And the aftermath of that game, I mean, how did you, I'm not talking about what they said in press conferences, but how's the group in 48 hours to a week after the game? How did you pull together, and what do you think business could learn about reset from a big blow, basically?
Yeah, it was a tough one. It was a tough one. I always would personally think that's something you need to let digest. I think if anything of that scale happens within a sporting team or a business, I think it's important not to have a knee jerk reaction, and maybe take a few days, take a week, and all you can do, I suppose, is take what positives you can from it. Um, Look back at what went well for us and what went wrong, and then try and implement what went wrong into the following preseason, because there's no point talking about it if you're not going to actually do anything about it. Um, was there a whole load of stuff that went wrong for us? I don't actually think so. It was just a case of Leinster. Leinster were a better team. They were probably more well gelled than us, had played more as a team than us, had experience in more finals than us. I know Ulster won the European Cup in 1999, but there wasn't there was no one playing from that day. Fitzy in 2012, and there was the Celtic League. I think Ulster won, yourself involved, 2006, but there was no over the course of nearly a decade, there wasn't loads of experience playing in finals, whereas Leinster had a lot. So there was lots of positives for Leinster going into that game, and stuff where we probably lacked. That being said, we probably got a little bit of a shock after it, but in the lead up to it, it was definitely we can do this, and anything can happen in a final. It was a hard one to take, but it was a great journey. It was a really enjoyable season for me personally, and it was what it was, and you can't spend too long licking your wounds.
No, absolutely. Quick question though, Craig, and honest answer. Did you ever, when you were playing for Ireland or playing in a European Cup final for Ulster, did you ever feel any pressure whatsoever when you went onto that pitch?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's elite sport. It's professional sport. It's one of the highest pressured jobs or careers in the world. I always felt that a little bit of nerves and a little bit of pressure was a good thing. You obviously cared about it, and meant that you cared about it, but you there has to be a line. If those nerves, if that pressure hijacks you, I don't know if you've read the book, The Chimp Paradox. Really a good read. It's quite interesting from a having a sporting background, I think if the nerves or the pressure hijacks you, you can be in trouble, and you're not going to be able to fulfill your potential. You're not going to be able to play your best, and then your contract's up. Your contract's not going to get renewed, and you're maybe going to have to find a new career. But certainly, just a little bit of nerves, a little bit of that sort of that nervousness that you can feel in your stomach, just to keep you sharp. There was one game we played. It was Ulster against Cast at home in Belfast at Ravenhill, and it was very early on in my career. And for some reason, this particular game, I was so nervous. I was coming back from an injury, and the Six Nations was just around the corner, and I really wanted to play well. I put far too much pressure on myself, and I spent the whole day worrying about it. Late kickoff, sitting in my apartment, just stressing, thinking about it. See, when I got on the pitch, my legs wouldn't move. I had honestly that mental nervousness, that fatigue had burnt all the energy in my body, and I felt like I was just exhausted 5 minutes into the game. And I think that's an interesting point for the business world, the corporate world. Burnout burnout can really have its negative effects. Yes, that happened for me in sport, in a physical activity, but to operate, you need to have a cool, clear mind. You need to look after yourself. I would be one who'd be a real advocate for self care, taking time to yourself, and obviously knowing what makes you tick. Overthinking things, or this anxiety, whatever's causing that, whether you're in sport or in business, I think it's really important to get that sorted, understand why, how to prevent it, or at least mitigate it, because it can really affect your performance.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's a lesson for leaders to spot that, because sometimes, the emotional load of certain games can get to people, and then that gets to can hit performance, and if leaders spot that someone's struggling. Did anyone spot that you were struggling, or at that particular moment?
Thankfully, that was kind of just like a one off sort of game for me, that was enough for me to, right. I don't need anyone to tell me. I know I've just ran on a grass pitch as fast as I can, and it looks from the crowd like I'm running on quicksand here, because there's nothing in my legs. But and fast forward a couple of years, I remember I had loads of minutes. I think I was the highest minutes in the, if not the whole team, definitely the back three, but I actually think it was the whole squad for Ulster. And I was playing really well, and I wanted to be playing, but I was really trying to get my recovery right. This is a short window. You play on a Friday night, 7 days later, it's a new game, and you guys know professional rugby, it takes its toll. Full contact, hard hitting, and I played loads of minutes, and I was loving it though. Like, I was enjoying playing and in form. But Les Kiss said to me, I think he saw that my minutes were high. I was in and out of the physio room, massage, recovery, and whatnot. And he pulled me aside and said, "Take a holiday. You're not playing this week. Grab a flight somewhere and relax. And I'll see you in 10 days' time or something." And at the time, I was like, "What? Is this a selection thing?" You know what it's like? All athletes are like, you know, warriors. Like, am I not playing well enough? I mean, I think I'm playing well enough. I'm the top try scorer. I'm all this stuff. Why is he letting me off? And it was to let me relax, recover, not burn myself out. And that was an absolutely brilliant season. And that was really good from a leadership point of view, for him to say that to me, not me go to him and say, "Les, I'm playing loads here. I need a break." And he's like, "Of course, what do you mean? Of course you're playing loads. It's your job. That's what you're here. Is that not what you want?" But for him to say it to me, and to give me that time off, and to sort of see that, I thought that was really good from a leadership, from a coach, from a man management point of view.
Smart man.
Yeah, it's a lesson that for business to spot that as a leader, rather than you go to them, they're spotting it before you have to go to them. Smart. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I come back to the feelings in the run up to that CAS game that you explained to us, which was fairly early on in your career? You said you didn't have that experience again. Was that because it didn't appear again, or you'd recognise how you were feeling pre the CAS game and put in some stratagems to help you, not get too aroused before a big game or too nervous? Were there things that, breakers that you put in place to keep you grounded?
Absolutely. And I recognize that. And that's a game that always stands out to me. And it was a really good learning for me. And in a way, I'm kind of glad I had it early on in my career. Going forward, then, I always like to keep myself busy. And when I say busy, I don't mean doing loads of things on the day of a game, but maybe having a lot more of a routine. I'm going because I need a clock kickoff. Sitting in your house all day, that's a long time to be waiting for a game. So what I did, and I know everyone's different. On match day, I tried to sleep in a little bit. I would have a bowl of porridge, something small, and then I would have maybe some brunch, some eggs. A couple hours after that, break up the day. I would sleep for an hour, and then probably 3 hours before the game, I would have like a small, depending on the kickoff, whether that's a small lunch or a small dinner, something light. I would walk my dog literally round the block, really light, walk, nothing strenuous at all. My bag would be packed the night before. I was, I'm sure I've got OCD, self-diagnosed. My bag the night before a game, I would hoover my bag. I would place, I would hoover the inside of the bag so there's no debris or dirt or anything. I would put my boots in it that were already cleaned, all the kit that I'm wearing to the game, beside it, at the game, in it, my gum shield, everything. That was all done, and I could just have my meals, walk the dog, have a sleep, and then I knew at a certain time it's time to get ready. I'm gonna jump in the shower now. I'm gonna get changed. I'm gonna put some music on, and the more you get into it, you work out, right, how long is this gonna take, and when do I need to be at the stadium? And I would have at the start wrote times down. I need to be eating this at this. Probably not healthy. I probably overdid it, but definitely if you need to find that middle ground of a routine, especially on game day, and it just keeps everything in check. And while that sounds a little bit dramatic or superstitious, the way I had designed it in the end, it was free flowing, and I was looking forward to it. I'm nice lying, my meal, take the dog for a walk, God rest her, come in, maybe have a sleep, have another meal, and it was all it was aligning, and there was no headache up here.
Makes a lot of sense. So I want to go back to something we discussed earlier in terms of between 2013 and 2016, you only had one Ireland cap, while you were posting incredible numbers, scoring a lot of tries, getting into two consecutive Pro 12 dream teams, Ulster Player of the Year, a lot of accolades, as you mentioned, a lot of minutes. Your output was clearly, going up and on the rise. But you weren't getting that international recognition for Ireland at that point while you were playing extremely well. How did you stay honest in your own performance and consistent? And you've kind of touched upon this, so I'm wondering if there's more layers to it. You were keep grinding, you were keeping your standards high, and staying positive in your own mind. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, well, it wasn't difficult to stay positive when my day job was, to me, the best job in the
Mm-hmm.
world. I was playing for Ulster. I was a starter week in, week out. My home province. I was absolutely loving it. There was no lack of motivation there. When it came to Ireland selection, that was probably a little bit more frustrating. When I got my first cap, shortly after that, I did have a bad groin injury that kept me out for the guts of a year, to be honest. So I didn't expect to get back in straight away, and that was okay. I understand that better now. I knew that at the time, but probably not as well as I know now. Like, you're not just going to be straight back to where you were firing on week one of your return to play. You know, it does take time. So I understood that earlier on, but in the sort of 2014 season, 15-16, when I was making those dream teams, when I was finishing the season's top try scorer in not for Ulster but in the whole league, and I still wasn't getting selected for Ireland. It was
Mm-hmm.
frustrating. It got to a point where I sort of said to myself, well, maybe it's not you. Maybe there's something else here that I'm not aware of. I wish I had more of those conversations with the coach at the time. Was, the coach had came from Leinster, and there was well, it was Leinster guys who were playing in my position for Ireland, and I just felt, personally, and I know a lot of other Ulster players would feel this way, that there was a real lack of favour, and favoritism showed more to other guys in different provinces. And that was tough, because I want to play for Ireland. Playing for Ulster is amazing, and as I said, the best job in the world. And that's the day to day. It's a full long season. Playing for Ireland is you've got your autumn internationals, you've got your Six Nations, and a summer tour, and it's not every day, and it's a privilege to play pro sport for a professional club, for your home club. It's an absolute privilege as well to play for your country. And I really wanted to play more, but I wasn't sure why I wasn't. Yeah, that was frustrating at times. Absolutely. And it's not like a job where you can it finishes at 5 p.m. and you go home and you watch an episode of Lost, and it's all good. Professional sport is, it's 24/7, like all year round.
Did you speak to the coach or the coaching staff? Did you look for feedback, or what you needed to do to bridge that gap? Or was there any communication back and forth on what you needed to work on?
There was, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would have went and spoken to the relevant coaches, had those conversations, maybe, receive feedback, and, can you work on this? And some of it was beneficial. Other parts of it, I just thought was bullshit, to be honest with you. Um, and it got to a stage, yeah, where I was just kind of sick of hearing it. It seemed to be like a different thing each time, which I knew wasn't the case, because like my numbers told uh, their own story. So yeah, it was frustrating. Looking back now, I wish I'd pushed more and had those harder questions and been a bit more, I suppose, stood up for myself more. But it's difficult. You don't want to piss the person off that's going to be deciding whether you're playing in a green
Mm-hmm.
jersey or not the next week. But at the same time, if you don't, you're not going to be playing anyway. So, looking back, it's like, well, you got nothing to lose, so just go for it. But
Yeah.
I was young and in my 20s, and I got capped pretty young as well. And if you could go back and do a couple of things differently, I'd say we all would, if we
Mm-hmm.
all could.
It's really important point you're making, because like a lot of people are scared to ask for feedback because they're worried about what they're going to hear. So it's so strength of character to ask for that feedback. And sometimes I think leaders need to, create an atmosphere where they can say with brutal honesty why you're not getting picked. And you would probably, if you knew the real reason, rather than getting brushed off, you'd probably respond, and that would give you more of a chance, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, Liam, if I knew, if I knew, I maybe would be sitting here with 50 caps and not 10. It's frustrating, and I hope it changes. I mean, going back to the start of our conversation, Rob Balakoon, I think he won or is nominated for Breakthrough Player of the Tournament. I mean, he's been doing that for Ulster since 2018, 2019. He is a phenomenal athlete. He is a brilliant winger, and that pains me to say that because I'm a winger, and you're always so competitive in your own position. But Rob Rob is a top guy, but a phenomenal athlete. Like there is nothing he can't do on the pitch from a winger's perspective. He is unbelievable in the air, in that aerial battle, whether that's going up to compete oncoming kicks or incoming kicks, catching above his head. Defensively, he makes the right reads. He is aggressive. He is fast, and in attack, he can score from anywhere on the pitch. You saw against the Scotland game, his offload to O'Brien for him to score, and he is just the full package. And I would argue that he's been doing that for a long time. The same with Nick Timoney and the same with Stu McCluskey. So why are they only getting their shot now?
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, I think there's a knack of asking difficult questions of people without blowing your lid, and being able to keep calm and to push people. And that's a skill in itself, which I know business people struggle with. And it's hard. It's hard. It takes a lot of courage, actually, to do that. I know time's going on for you, Craig. So I was going to flip into the last question before I do the quick fire. So, when you were at Ulster, you were injured, a few times, but the support structure seemed to be there. You bounced back, and I think you were injured once. You came back, scored 2 tries. What was the support? What was the support like at Ulster for you? And what did it mean?
The support was great. I never had another professional club, because not only was it my is Ulster my home, Northern Ireland my home. The support there from the fans. We have diehard fans who would follow the team to every corner of the earth. Um, we have an amazing. You're so well looked after. You hear some horror stories in top 14 of guys just getting absolutely flogged and almost put down if they're not cutting the mustard or they've got an injury. I was so well looked after from an S&C point of view, from a medical point of view. There's a full-time nutritionist, there's a full-time psychologist there now, and those times that I was injured, it can be a dark place. It can be a lonely place if you're injured, especially a long-term injury, but certainly made so much easier with the staff and the support network that you have there.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, obviously Fitzy speaks about the support structure at Ulster, and I mean, it's so vital to give players that support to feel that they can perform. So we'll move on now to, I know time's of the essence for you, Craig, so I was going to go on to quick fire questions. Just give us your
Yep.
first response, honest, quick answer. Let's go. So, one word, what does a dressing room actually feel like the week before a game that really matters?
Buzzing.
That's a good answer. Best winger you've ever faced in 13 seasons, name them. And the one thing they did which you couldn't work out.
Ugo Monye, ridiculously fast.
Okay. And it's quite a hard question that for a prop to get my head around. But as a business leader, business leaders building a high performance culture from scratch. One thing from elite sport that they could steal immediately, and one thing they should leave well alone.
Steal from elite sport. Maybe, God, it's hard, isn't it? Maybe those repetitions to get things right. I don't know if it can overlap. One thing they should leave alone. Um,
I can answer that one for you if you want. Do you want
yeah,
me
go
to
ahead.
answer this?
Pass the Liam.
Governance at the very top. Okay, I said
Okay,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and you're dead right. One thing as well is basically pressure, you know, having drills, so everything's second nature. That's what I think business, which you kind of alluded to. Okay, so question 4. Fitzy signed you for Dungannon when you were 17. Was that the best or worst phone call of your life? We know the answer to that.
Best.
There was only ever one answer.
Okay, so right, let me push a bit harder on that one. So who was right, your mum or Fitzy?
My mum was right to inquire, because I was little old 18-year-old me, and Fitzy sees this try score machine, and he's going to say anything to my mum to get her to say yes, you know. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't just a let's get him here and my team's gonna win if he's in it. It was a bigger picture, and it was a journey, and it was a way in to Ulster via the academy and the A's and then the senior. So, you know, he was true to his word, and me and my mum and dad, and they came to watch me, and I look back, and I've since been back to some pre-match lunches. I look back really fondly at my time with Dungannon. As Fitzy said, it's a brilliant place, and the most welcoming, lovely people.
Yeah, well done to both of you. Well done, Fitzy, as well, for spotting a talent on the wing, which is quite remarkable, Fitzy, for a front row forward. But fair play. So your last cap for Ireland was a hat-trick in Rome. If you could go back and say one thing to yourself in that changing room, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
I would say you're going to get dropped after this game, so score 4 tries.
Fair play. Fair play. I'll let Fitzy finish, but pleasure speaking with you, Craig.
Thanks, Liam. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Craig, absolute pleasure to have you on the business end. That was a really insightful conversation. You know, obviously it was great working with you. It seems like a long time ago, and not in the same breath. And to see how well you've done with your rugby career and now into business. Wishing you every success for the future, and thank you for joining us on the business end.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, gents. Love being
you.
on. Thank you.